California Black Chamber of Commerce Foundation, in partnership with the California Black Health Network, presents the African American Leadership Weekend and Wellness Day Conference, revitalizing the urban agenda.
So let's do the math. How long have we had a right to vote? Next slide. 40 years. How many times, Dr. Prt said it yesterday, and it made me pause and think. He said, when people ask him, as an African-American man, what are you doing? Why aren't you doing something? We've only been able to do something 40 years now. I'm 43. That's not a long time in any nation's history. And that's why I understand now when I sit in conferences and I listen to health disparities, and I listen to the lack of wealth, the lack of creation, and I listen to why African Americans, even though we are small in number, present the highest incidence of negativity. And then when they look at me as a black woman and they say, what are you doing? I've only been able to do it for 40 years. So how can you hold me accountable for the atrocities that was committed by your foreparents, when you've only given me the right to be recognized as a human being in this country 40 years ago? But you know what? 40 years later, where are we? Yeah. We are standing, and that shows the power of our people. No other race has accomplished in 40 years what we have done. We have a black man leading one of the greatest countries in the world. 40 years later, his fathers were denied and being hanged and lynched, and still being hanged and lynched, but with guns. Next slide. However, Dr. Martin Luther King said, we are now faced with the fact, my friends, this was in 1967, in the Bethesda Baptist Church. My friends, that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. My background, history. We as a people have to understand the legacy of our black president cannot be he was just the first black president. It cannot be that. We cannot let the history books write that for him. We cannot be complacent and sit back and think that all is well because we have a black president. Just look around at what our president is facing. What are we going to let his legacy be? Look at the Affordable Care Act sitting on the chopping block of the Supreme Court. How significant is that? And can I be bad? Badder? Let me keep it real. You don't think that the powers that be understand, 40 years, keep that number in your head. We've had Bill Clinton claim to be the first black president. He tried universal health care. How many presidents have tried universal health care? One man so far. And what's the color of his skin? Black. Do you think the people who write the history of this country want him to have the claim for that magnificent piece of legislation? So as you sit there and watch that chopping block, as the Supreme Court, like I told Aubrey yesterday, throw out words as limiting principles, because I read. And that's what they're looking for as the reason for eliminating the Affordable Care Act, that the act as a mandate is not limiting the power of government. They're not caring about limiting the power of government, because how can we limit the power of government if we're invading sovereign nations? Okay? But we're limiting the power of a black president. So that's why we need to stand up and be counted.